Hello and welcome to part 27 of my 3D modeling series. In this video we're going to learn about how we can use reference images to help us model. So first of all, let's open up our material editor. Find an empty slot here. You can add a texture either by clicking on this box next to diffuse or by clicking on this box where it says none over here in the maps rollout. So just click here, select a bitmap. Now this will take you, navigate to the folder where you have your reference images saved. Here I've got a variety of reference images that I wanted to show you. Let's say that you want to model a real world weapon. So you would have several photographs of your weapon. In this case we've got a Makarov here. So I'll go ahead and select this one. Down here in the bottom left, in the statistics, you can see what the dimensions of the image are. In this case, it's 1100 by 847. So memorize those numbers and click on Open. And that will assign this bitmap texture to this material. So now it's time for us to create our actual plane. So go here under Standard Primitives and create a plane. And right here under length and width, go ahead and set those dimensions that we just saw. So 1100 by 847. Now click on Apply, assign material to selection, and click this button right here which says Show Standard Map in Viewport. And that will show you that texture being applied to our plane object. Now I'm going to go ahead and activate my angle snap and rotate it. Now when I model, I like to use X symmetry. So in this case, if I keep it like this, I'll have to use Y symmetry. So I'm just going to go ahead and rotate it by 90 degrees and move it to the left right here. And I'm also going to center my image on the Y-axis right here. I'm just going to move it back. So here is one reference image. Now you'll notice that when I move my camera around, you can see that the image kind of gets darker. If you want your reference images or any other object or texture to have simply one, if you don't want the texture to be affected by the camera or light, right here in the self-illumination, go ahead and increase this value to 100. Don't click on color, don't click on this box right here, instead just increase this value to 100. And you can now see that whenever I move my camera, the texture does not get darker because it's now being illuminated by this texture map. So this is our first reference image. It's time to set up our second reference image. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click and drag this box right here to the right. That's going to create a duplicate, a clone of this material. Now there will be problems if you have the same exact name. So I'm going to click here, backspace, and rename this to material number 3. So now we've got material number 2 and material number 3. You can be more descriptive in your names by calling it something like ref1, ref2, reference image, if you would like to be more descriptive. But in this case I'm just going to go ahead and add one number here. So now it's time for us to create our second reference image. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold shift and move it out here. And I'm going to make sure I'm in my second reference material here. Click here. Click under bitmap parameters, bitmap, click here, and select the other side of the Makarov. This one has slightly different dimensions, 1115 and 851. So I'm going to select that one. Now I'm going to take my cloned image here and I'm going to give it different length and width numbers. So 1115, I think, and 851 was it? I'm just going to go ahead and confirm. So yes, 1115 and 851. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and assign material to selection, and it's going to go ahead and put that texture here. Now, even though we set the self-illumination to 100, whenever you have a single face, it has a front face and a back face. So you can see that the back face here is darker than here. And in this situation, this part is brighter and this one is a little bit darker. You can fix this by giving it a shell. So selecting it and applying a shell modifier. And that will give it a little bit of thickness. This is before shell and this is after. It gives it a little bit of thickness and eliminates the backside problem. So now both sides are have a equal brightness. So observe this part right here and watch what happens when I apply a shell modifier. It gets a lot brighter. It has the same brightness as the actual reference image. Okay, so now I have one more reference image to use. And so I'm going to go ahead and make a third material. Rename it. Change the actual texture right here. This is a shot of the back of the pistol. So now you notice that we have extra space here. That's not really necessary. We can make our plane smaller. What we should not do is select these vertices and move it. That will squish the plane and squish the texture. Instead, I'm going to use Swift Loop to add a loop here, add a loop here. Now I've got three faces. I can simply select the ones I don't need and delete them. So now I've gone ahead and set up three reference images, and now I'm ready to begin modeling. So what I recommend is whenever you're modeling a pistol, a real-world weapon, it's symmetrical in a lot of situations. Except what I recommend is modeling it as far as you can, symmetrically, and then once you reach the point where you have to add some asymmetrical details, then you can go ahead and hide this reference image and use this one, for example. So if you're modeling this macro, for example, I'll go ahead and model this part, the top, and this part, and then turn off the symmetry, put another poly modifier on top of the symmetry, and then you can model in the safety and this part here, and the ejector where the bullets come out. Oh, and also, right now the pistol actually, this texture is facing the wrong way, so I'm going to go ahead and go to Tools, Mirror, Y, and there we go. Now it's facing the correct direction. That kind of just slipped my mind, but there we go. And of course, don't get confused on which direction is which. This is the left side of the gun, and this is the right side. So even though it looks like it's going this way, that's actually the right side of the gun. So don't get confused about that as well. It helps to study your reference before you actually start modeling and learn which details go where. So now I don't need this right now, so I'm going to go ahead and right click, hide selection, and I can start modeling right here. I can start modeling in a variety of ways. I can simply create a plane. I can create it in the right viewport, and I'm just going to move it here, give it my gray modeling material, and begin modeling. Activate transparency by pressing Alt X, and I can simply begin modeling like so. Another way is by using the cut tool first. So position the plane over the image, apply edit poly, and use the cut tool, which is Alt-C by default. Okay, it's giving me a little bit of a problem here. And that's, oh, there we go. And I'm just going to go ahead and cut and move. So of course you can, when you're modeling, you can go ahead and be a little bit more accurate, a little bit more precise. I'm kind of rushing here for the purposes of demonstration. And now that I've cut this, I can go ahead and select this, Control I, and delete what I don't need. And here I've got this part of the weapon already started. Whenever you're cutting into a plane, it can create some extra vertices. So be sure to go in there and remove those extra vertices. You can see we've got a bunch of extra vertices being created here. Just select the ones that you don't need and remove. And got some extra ones here as well. Remove, and then you can go ahead and start connecting and establishing your topology, establishing your quads. Each weapon, each model has different topology requirements. So that's up to you to decide what topology you need for what weapon. So one way to check if you've got any extra vertices is to analyze your model and tell yourself how many vertices you need. For example, when I make a selection here, I should have 6 vertices. If I have more than that, I've got unnecessary extras. So I'm going to press 7 to turn on my statistics. I'm going to select right here, and it tells me I've got 6 vertices, so I don't have any extra ones here. Here I should have 1, 2, 3, 4, and now it tells me I have 5, which means I've got an extra one right here. I can go ahead and use that. Another way to tell if you've got any extra vertices is by the actual result when you turbo smooth. As you can see, whenever you have quads and no extra vertices, you get this kind of nice result. When you have extra vertices and not quads, you get this messy result. So that's another way you can tell if you've got any extra vertices or strange topology happening. And then once you fix that and get all quads, it should look much better. I can always check by going to selection, non-quads. So we've got all quads right now. We're doing fine. Alright, so since I created a plane in the front, in the right viewport, I should go ahead and apply a reset X form. Right click and collapse to. There we go. And now I can go ahead and go into my front viewport, front, or perhaps my back viewport. There we go. And now I can apply show modifier and increase the inner amount and the outer amount, or actually just the outer amount, until it fits with the reference image. About right there. Then I can go and select all, and then deselect this. Now I'm going to go ahead and apply a symmetry modifier and set the threshold to 0.01. So now I've got some actual thickness to my model. Now one thing I forgot to mention is the size right now is very large. This is not a real world scale. I would recommend for you guys not to worry about the actual scale. When you're modeling, it's a good idea to have your model be a lot larger. That will make it easier to work with. Then, once you're done, you can go ahead and scale it back down to its actual size. In the first part right now, I'm just worried about the proportions. Then later on, I'll go ahead and use the scale tool and scale it to the size it needs to be for its final use in the game or the scene. So now I'm going to go ahead and select these edges, deselect the ones I don't want, and I'm going to go ahead and use the reference image to give this model proper shape, a proper shape. Convert to vertices and just kind of move it to the left right here. So I've just shown you a good workflow for making real-world weapons, starting with a plane and then adding a shell modifier to give it some thickness, and then you just go ahead and continue from here. And for the other side, you can also use multiple viewports to model. Don't limit yourself to one viewport. And of course, use a variety of reference images. I recommend to have not only these reference images, but also some reference images of the side of the different angles of your weapon. So not just the front, top, bottom, side, but also like at this angle and all sorts of different angles that will help you to understand what's really happening with your model, with your object, your weapon in this case. Alright, so there we go. Let's go ahead and apply Turbo Smooth. Ice line display. And now you can start, if you would like, you can start adding those support edges. Of course, here the topology is going this way. We're going to have to manually change the edge flow. And then I'm going to go ahead and target weld, select, loop, and remove. So now I've manually changed the edge flow. And same for this. So as you can see, if I use Swift Loop, for example, it's going to go ahead and go up because that's how the edges flow. And that is not what I need, so I'm just going to go ahead and remove the part I don't need and manually cut where I would like the edges to be. And enhancing the edge flow. And now when I smooth it, it's going to give me a better result. So that is how I would begin to model a weapon like this, the Makarov. And just keep refining it until it looks the way you would like it to be.